Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be looking at every single watercolor paint I own. I'm looking at it right now, it's a lot. I'm just briefly going to say I'm going to be touching on some things that I don't necessarily personally consider watercolors, but I know that most people do, so I will be including those. Now, I feel like this should be obvious, but everyone else does a sort of disclaimer like this at the start of a video similar to this, so I'm going to be doing that as well. You obviously don't need to own this many paints. Yeah, you don't. I like owning lots of different varieties of colors. I don't own that many duplicates. Most of them are different in one way or another. So, yeah, you don't need this. In fact, I will probably highlight one or two that I think are good examples of, like, everything you could possibly need to paint whatever you want. So, I'm doing this in no particular order, but I feel like it's good to start off with my first watercolor set that I ever got. So, my first proper watercolor set was this St. Petersburg White Nights palette. And I've clearly removed some of the colors because I didn't like some of them and I never used them and they were just kind of in the way. It's a 40-something color set. This is one of those examples of this is everything you would ever need. I've had this for years and years, and I've hit pan on a couple of colors, but they're still lasting me quite a while, and you can buy them open stock, so pretty great. And they're very high quality, they work amazingly, they still work amazingly. The next one, I feel like this one's kind of interesting. This is like a pencil case, this is like a plastic pencil case. These are almost all Grumbacher Academy paints, but there are some permanent pigment paints, which is, I believe that's the company, the old name for the company that is now Golden Acrylics, if I'm remembering correctly. They don't make watercolors anymore, but some of these are permanent pigment watercolors. These paints are very, very old. I found them at a junk shop, just little tubes. I think they were like $2 a tube, I can't remember. But they had these beautiful vintage labels. I should have pulled those out so that I could show you. Yeah, okay, so we've got Prussian Blue. This is the Grumbacher Academy. And then, let's see, there we go. The Permanent Pigment Artists watercolors have this beautiful writing on the top, and just the color, and oh, they're beautiful, beautiful. I want to frame them in like a little shadow box and hang them on the wall. I think that would be really cool. There's even True Alizarin Crimson. Alizarin Crimson, I don't know, which is not generally sold today because it's so fugitive, which is like, that makes sense. It makes sense that people wouldn't want to sell that, but it's also really cool to have it if you're a watercolor nerd. This is my main palette, and it is the least traditional, I'd say. Here we are. I'm not going to go over every single color because there's a lot of them, and basically none of them are traditional colors. We've got like Mayan red, green, blue, and yellow. This is also where I keep my Roman small paints, and for the most part these are pretty non-traditional colors, and I love working with this palette. I want to do an in-depth video of it at some point, going through each and every color, because I am totally able to make full paintings with this. I don't feel limited by it most of the time. But it is a very, very different selection of colors than you will usually find. They were all individually bought as like individual pans or tubes by me. So that's what this one is. Next, we've got all of these. So I think we'll start with the one I got first. The first one I got was the Mozart Komarebi, I'm not going to try to say that. The Mozart Neon Gansai paints, basically. I got these ages and ages and ages ago, and I don't use them super often, but the color is really good. The color payoff is really, really good. So these are by Boku Undo. So I've got both sets. of Boku Undo shadow colors. So I've got the black set, reddish black, yellowish black, blah blah blah, and I really liked those. And then when I saw this set come out, I really wanted it, and I got it before it was even like widely available. I had to get it from a store that kind of specialized in importing Japanese art supplies and stationery, because it wasn't widely available. But I really love these colors. I've heard some people talk about light fastness concerns with these paints. I haven't quite had the chance to test that myself, but I mostly use them in my sketchbook, so it's no big deal for me, at least at the moment. These are the Gansai Tanbai graphite colors, similar concept to the last two. Dark or black pigment mixed with other colors. A very similar color selection to this one, but these are mixed with graphite, and by a different brand, by Gansai Tanbai. And they're grittier and grainer, and you can burnish them to have that metallic finish that pencils does, and they're a lot of fun as well. The next one is this adorable little cookie of watercolors by Julie Maggie Watercolors, and these are really great. They make me think of medieval illumination in like manuscripts and stuff, and so I've done several little things in my sketchbooks over the years inspired by medieval manuscripts using these colors, and I just love it. They're very small quantities of paint, but then again they're watercolor, so that actually does last quite a while. I have again had this for years. This one is a set that's a similar style, but it's by a different brand, and I haven't even used this yet. This was a gift that I haven't had a chance to use because I wanted to try it on camera. So this is by Beam Paints. They're an indigenous owned family business, and they have a focus on non-toxic pigments and sustainable practices for manufacturing their paints, and also on ethically sourced mica for their paints, which is really cool. I have some other paints by them. They call this their gouache set. I feel like I want to test them before I consider them gouache. Personally, I'm a little skeptical of any gouache that comes dried, but I do know that they're going to be lovely paints either way, and they're these beautiful pastel colors that I'm very excited to use. So I really want to try these soon. I want to make a video trying them soon because they're so pretty. The next paints we have are the Schminke Super Granulation paints, and I've got the Shire collection and the Desert collection, the little guys. And these, I love these. These are so nice, and I love using them. I've got to say, Desert Green is probably one of my favorite paints ever. I love it so much. It's worth noting that these are like technically convenience mixes. You can make these by just mixing two single pigment granulating colors. You don't need to buy these, but I love them. And for some people, convenience mixes are worth it. Alright, we'll branch out a little bit. Derwent Graphitant pencils. These come in pan form 2, I believe, and like sticks. I don't really know. Derwent makes too many products. They make too many. They have like, it feels like they have like 100 different basic colored pencils. But these are super nice. I love working with these. I love using these. I haven't used them in like a finished nice piece yet. I mostly use them in my sketchbook, but I really want to try it soon. And I love the colors. They're so beautiful. If you've seen any of my sketchbook tours, you've probably seen these these pencils being used. They're watercolor pencils, I should have said. Graphite mixed with color. You've probably seen those colors, and they are all so pretty. So I love those. Alright, next we're moving on to something that's both not super impressive and very special to me. But these are the watercolors that I've made. I dabbled in making watercolor paint for a little bit, and these are the ones that I made. I made a large batch of metallic copper because I had some copper mica pigment, and I made a couple using old chalk pastels that I had that I wasn't really using for anything, just to try it out, which worked really well. I'd love to get back into that at some point and maybe even make videos about it, but it just got put off because the last place we were living was just way too small to do that effectively. But I would love to get back into it, and they're just kept in this old Arteza watercolor pencils box. I got rid of the pencils ages ago, but the box is nice, so I kept it to hold those. These are the Kuretake Gansai Tanbi paints. This is the 48 color set. You'll probably know I only just recently learned how to use these in a way that I like, and I've owned this set for a couple of years at least. So yeah, that's kind of how some of my art supplies go. I buy them because they're interesting, and then I don't really figure out how to use them for real for quite a while. And they just kind of sit around until I get inspired, which isn't great, but you know, it could be worse. I do usually end up using everything. But I really, really like these. I'm planning on doing a more in-depth video on Gansai paints and how they work and how they're different from watercolors. This is kind of what I meant when I said I have stuff that I don't personally consider watercolors in this list, because when I say watercolors, I think of Western watercolors, and these are quite different on a functional level, so I don't think it's actually very useful for anyone if we just call these watercolors instead of Gansai paints, but that's something I will get into when I get around to making that video. After that, I have the Art Nouveau set, and I didn't find this out until later, but the reason that they made an Art Nouveau set was because the company was founded in around the Art Nouveau era, which I think is a super cute reason to design a set around Art Nouveau. That's such a cute way to pick a theme for a new, unique, like, product. That's so cool. Please don't fall. Please don't fall. Right, wow. Yeah, I really love these. I did a review of them, a test and review video on them, that I think I did a decent job on. And I talked at length about how much I love all of these colors. They're super wonderful. There are no repeats between the two sets at all. But they're also very complete sets all on their own, and that's just so fantastic. Next is my Studio Ghibli palette, which I also made a video on, which is still the video that constantly gets the most views week per week. It almost always has the most views. But as you can see, I use it quite a bit. It's a fantastic palette. Definitely a different selection of colors than you're going to get most of the time. But really, really great paints and a really interesting just selection of colors that I think is really, really fun. And a great breath of fresh air from a more traditional color layout, like my White Nights palette or my Vintage Paints palette. Next, this little blue Altoids tin is little dot cards I've gotten from buying handmade watercolors over the years. So this one is like a metallic red. This is a swatch of, these are dot cards of the super granulation colors that I have. I just did a dot card so that I could use them right away. This is from Julie Maggie, and it's Mountain Spirit, and it's a beautiful, beautiful earthy red. Really love that one. This is from Julia K, and it's Iris. It's called Iris, and it's this beautiful metallic green. And then this is a red by Beam Paints that came with the palette I'm about to show you. This is my first Beam Paints colors. So they're the paint stones in their little paper and beeswax cloth pans, I guess you'd call them. But I got a lot of their metallic colors because they focus on ethical mica, which is to say mica that, as far as they can tell, has not been mined with child labor, which is a huge thing with mica. Yeah, we've got, I got the Christmas set. I bought it around Christmas one year. So I got the Christmas set and a couple of other really beautiful colors, and they're very nice. The only one I'd say is the Wintry Night, which is this beautiful, like, indigo color with gold sparkles. It's so beautiful. I love it so much. Unfortunately, I think I got like a bad batch of it, because it rubs off the paper, and none of the other paints from Beam Paints that I've ever tried have done that. Just that one color. So I think I just got a bad batch. They do work in like very small batches. It's bound to happen. It's no big deal. But I do have to consider every time I use it that I'm going to need to seal that painting, which I don't really need to do generally with watercolor paintings. Alright, that was every single watercolor paint that I own. I didn't show you the tubes for stuff that I already have in pans. Wait, did I? No, I don't think I did. Missed one. This is my Isaro palette. So these are my Isaro paints. They're very, very beautiful paints. It's a very small palette. I have, at the time, I bought all of their metallic shimmery colors. They have since made more, but at the time this was all of them. And a pretty decent color selection, although if I were to buy these again, I would probably get fewer reds, because several of these colors are very similar in the red range. So I could have probably done with at least one less red and one more of some other color. But what I really, really like about these, aside from the very delicate nature of the glitter paints, they're very different from other metallic paints. They're very subtle and carefully crafted to just shimmer in a really, really unique way. Each one has a very unique personality. But the thing I really like about these, aside from that, is that all of their paints have a very distinct granulation. Even if they're not a granulating pigment, it's like they have a subtle grit, or like they were milled slightly less finely than other brands. So they have this unique texture, this tiny speckling texture in it that I sometimes really, really want, and is super, super beautiful. One thing to note, this Prussian blue, my first one solidified into a rock that is impossible to re-wet, like completely. I've soaked it in water for multiple days. It did not re-wet, so I had to take that out, not use that, and refill it and add honey. So hopefully that works. If not, I'll try again with some glycerin. I just couldn't find glycerin at the time. But yeah, none of the other paints have had that problem for me, but the Prussian blue did. Different pigments work different ways, So yeah, that is all of my watercolor paints that I own. It is a lot. It is far more than anyone needs. I still have the urge to buy more. I mean, part of it is genuine curiosity. There are pigments and colors I've never tried, and I just have this urge to see them in real life. I have a real love of color. I love all colors. I don't understand people who hate colors, especially just like whole genres. There are people out there who like hate green, just as a whole, all greens, and I'm just like, I don't get it at all. I love pastels and neons and neutrals and everything in between. I love all color, and I want to try it and use it and experiment with all of them and see how each individual pigment behaves. So this is not about making art so much as it is knowing the paints. For that reason, I'm saying you really don't need all of these. My best recommendation would be like White Nights, because it's the only like full set I've ever bought until the Miyazaki paints, I'd say. And like you don't need this many colors. You can get a much smaller palette and still make a huge variety of tones and mix all kinds of colors and make incredible paintings. Lots of people work with way fewer colors. I'd say a subtly different variety of colors, but this many would probably be more than enough. But to be clear, I've made full paintings with this, but also with this little guy of my Isaro paints. I've made full paintings with no color limitations at all, with my palette of individually selected paints that weren't bought while thinking about other colors almost at all, because it's paint. It's so flexible. You just mix them, and you can get all kinds of different things. So, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like, subscribe, notification bell to actually maybe possibly be notified when there's a new video, and leave a comment if you're feeling saucy. Maybe letting me know which palette you liked the most. And I'll see you next time. Bye.